Hi gals, it's Fee, and as promised I'm back with the most recent chapter of my TTC journey. Just so everybody knows where I'm currently at. It's also my hardest experience to date, this chapter. So hopefully I make it through this without breaking down too badly. I've been told many times that getting some of this out should help, and maybe it'll help someone else in the process. Okay, so as I explained before, my husband and I have been TTCing for quite a while, and more recently I was diagnosed with PCOS, and he was diagnosed with 2 different abnormalities. And back in January and February, my doctors were doing more blood tests to make sure that the medicine, metformin, that I was on was doing what it was supposed to, that I was ovulating correctly, and there was also some levels that they wanted to check out. And the ovulation seemed to be going okay. But in both of those months they wanted to do day 21 blood tests. And they found that my progesterone levels were really low. In January it was 10.2, and the way they explained it to me was it should have been closer to 15, and if I were to ever get pregnant it should be closer to 20 at that point. Before moving on, they wanted to do a second test in February, the same one. They wanted to just verify everything. And that one came back as 10.4, not much better. And they said that at that point, if I were to ever get pregnant, I wouldn't be able to maintain it because the progesterone levels were just way too low. So they wanted my husband and I to make another appointment for the following week to discuss what the next course of action should be, what they were looking to do and what we were willing to do, and everything has side effects, so they wanted to just chat before we moved on. So I made an appointment for the following week. I think that was a Thursday. And that day should have been day 2 of the next cycle. And AF never showed up. Now, if you watched my previous video, you know that something like that happened to me once before, and I got all excited, and I had nothing but negative tests. And I have a pretty steep emotional learning curve. I very quickly got to the point where I told myself not to get excited too quickly, just because I didn't want to be let down, I guess. And sure enough, I did 2 different tests, and both of them were negative. So 2 days later, we go to the doctor's appointment, and needless to say, I was aggravated. I was pissed, in plain old English. And that's how I went to that meeting. I was just really, really aggravated. I walked in there and I told him, okay, I've been taking the metformin, it's been working all this time, and the ovulation is working, and now I don't have a cycle, I don't have AF, I don't have a positive pregnancy test, so apparently the medicine stopped working. Why? I wanted to know why. And I was just really, really aggravated. And I look up, and the doctor immediately starts smiling at me. And I cut her off right away. I said, no, I took a test, it's negative, so that's not it. Of course, she wanted to do a blood test, and she told me that she'd call me the next morning, and if it was positive, then that was great, and if it was negative, they'd have to put me back on a month of Provera to force a cycle to make sure everything with my estrogen was okay. And then after that, they put me back on the metformin and Clomid and Prometrium, and that's where we were going to move on to. Now, keep in mind, I was not on Clomid yet. I've never been on Clomid. That was when it was supposed to start up. And she calls me the next morning, and I'm in my bathroom getting ready for work. I almost didn't answer the phone because it was time for me to leave. And I almost dropped my phone in the toilet in the process because the doctor says, and I'll never forget this, she's like, "Hey, I have some great news for you. You're pregnant." And I was just in shock. It didn't seem real. We've been at this for 8 years, and this was my first positive ever. It was like, this is going to sound so cheesy, but it was like the clouds opened up and the angels started singing. I swear that's what it felt like. It was great. I went to work that day, and I remember having problems at work, and nothing could get me down. I had a big smile on my face the whole time, no matter how many things went wrong at work. It didn't matter. It was like the old joke, you know, keep smiling, it makes people wonder what you're up to. Yeah, that's exactly what it was like, because they had no clue what was going on. The people that I work with, obviously, at that point. But back to the phone call, about 5 seconds after she told me, "Hey, you're pregnant," something kind of clicked in my brain, and I said, "Well, wait a minute. I thought you people just told me that I can't maintain a pregnancy with the progesterone levels as low as they are." And she said, yeah, I'm calling in progesterone for you. Go to Walgreens and fill this prescription now. Don't wait till later. Get it now and start taking it now." And that's how she said it. So I went and got that, and I had to take that once a day. And she wanted me to go for a blood test in 2 days to see where that level was at. And I did, and in 48 hours, it jumped from 10.4 to 19.8. And she was ecstatic. But the HCG levels were still really low. They were 201 at that point. And I think that's why the tests I took were negative, because that would have been 5 days prior to that point. So obviously it would have been much less than 201 5 days prior to that. So she wanted me to go for another blood test 3 days later. They were worried, but they said, you know, if it doubles in 72 hours, then you should be okay. But we're probably going to want you to go for numerous blood tests just so that we can monitor this. So I go back in 3 days, and it didn't double. It almost quadrupled. It went from 201 to 998 in 3 days. And the doctor was like ecstatic. She's like, "You know what, you're going to be fine. You don't have to go for those other blood tests. You're good." But they did want me to schedule an ultrasound for week 7. Just because of how oddly this started. I mean, that's kind of early for an ultrasound for most doctors, but they were just being overly cautious, I guess. And they did warn me. They said that it might be a little early to see anything at that point, and that I shouldn't panic. That they just wanted to check out what was going on in there and make sure everything looked good, and they'd probably want another ultrasound the week after that, and that one should hopefully show a baby. And when I went, that's exactly what happened. They could see the gestational sac, they could see the placenta, they could see everything was looking great, everything was looking healthy, but the gestational sac was running about a week behind, which they said was kind of common. you know, implantation could have been a little bit late. My numbers could have been off. Not a big deal. So they told me not to worry, that they couldn't see anything inside the sac yet, but that wasn't a big deal. So I did what they told me to do, and I didn't worry. Well, or at least I tried to. I mean, there's always that little, I always have that little voice in the back of my head. But I definitely kept myself busy with all the baby things I had pushed out of my brain for so long. I pushed so many baby thoughts out just for my own mental well-being so that I wouldn't drive myself crazy. And I let all of those things back in all at once. Baby names, baby shopping, baby wish lists. I even went out and bought one of those snoogles. I don't know if you girls have ever seen these things, but they're ridiculously comfortable, by the way. When I went to go buy it, I went to Babies R Us, and I parked in the expectant mother's spot, and I took a picture of the sign because it made me happy. So I did my best not to worry. And I went back for an ultrasound the following week. It was still running a week behind, according to measurements, but the gestational sac had doubled in size. The placenta was growing nicely. They said my ovaries had good blood flow. The corpus luteum was there and in full effect, and everything was looking great. But the gestational sac was still empty. And that's when a tech said to her, the ultrasound tech, because I had to go to the hospital for it, he said 2 words that I really don't ever want to hear again. Blighted ovum. And at that point, I had no idea what that was. And because I was assumed to be 8 weeks at that time, and nothing was showing in the sac, they said I was at an 80% risk of a blighted ovum, which would result in an early term miscarriage. And essentially, what a blighted ovum is everything looks like a normal pregnancy, but there's nothing growing. There's no growth. They can't see a fetal pole. They can't see anything. They don't know what causes it. Well, I mean, they kind of know what causes it, but there's nothing they can do about it. It's unexplainable. It's ridiculously common, apparently. Only a lot of times it happens really soon, really quickly, so some people don't even know that they're pregnant when they get one of these. They just have an extra heavy period that month. But they believe it's caused by chromosomal abnormalities, either something not quite right with the egg, something not quite right with the sperm, or during those initial cell division steps, the very first ones, something went wrong. It's one of those 3 things. And it's really common. So that was a Friday when I had that ultrasound done, and I was told that they wanted another one the following Monday, and they wanted me to go for a blood test that day, but because it was a Friday, they wouldn't get the results of the blood test until Monday because of the weekend. So essentially, I wouldn't know anything until Monday. We were left with 20% of hope. And that was the worst weekend ever. I did all I could not to hyperventilate for 2 days, and I gotta tell you, I didn't do a really good job. My husband, bless him, held on to that last 20% chance we had with every ounce of strength he had. He tried to stay strong for me. But I wasn't very strong that weekend. I was a train wreck. So, Monday morning, I get a call from the doctor, and the blood test had come back in, and the HCG level was 66,000. 66,000. And the doctor was confused. I guess typically a blighted ovum wouldn't show a beta level that high. Or if it did show a higher level, it wouldn't have the mathematical calculations behind it where it wouldn't show that it was doubling, or it would only get so high and then it would drop off. Like your body is detecting that something's wrong, and the HCG levels start dropping. Well, mine wasn't. And she also said that I should have been experiencing some period type crampings, spotting, and I didn't have either one of those either. Nothing. So that day I went for the third ultrasound. And the gestational sac had grown even more. Not quite as much as last time, but it did grow. But it was still completely clear. And all 3 times we went for the ultrasound, we happened to get the same tech at the hospital, and this poor guy just didn't know what to say. He was really thrown off by what the beta levels were being recorded as. By the 3rd ultrasound, we kind of knew what we were looking at on the screen. And as soon as that empty sac appeared on the screen, my husband, that strength that he found from I don't know where over the weekend to be strong for me, that strength failed, and I watched a grown man crumble to the floor into a sobbing little ball. It was horrible. And that's about the only way I can describe that. But here's where things went even crazier. I was actually scheduled to go to Phoenix for 10 days. I was supposed to leave 2 days later after this ultrasound. So this ultrasound was on Monday. I was supposed to leave. It was either Wednesday night or Thursday morning. I don't remember. And of course they didn't want me to go. They wanted me to stay and be monitored. And they had no intentions of actually doing anything until they were positive of what was going on here. But I still had no signs of any impending doom. So I told him no. I said, no, I'm going to go. I was going to be with family. I was going to be in Phoenix, which was, 20, 30 minutes away from the Mayo Clinic, one of the best in the country. And I felt that if something bad was going to happen, I'd rather be in the warmth of Arizona than the cold of Chicago. So I went, and for that entire 10-day vacation, I had no problems. No cramping, no spotting, nothing. But, all through these weeks, the previous weeks, I had a lot of the classic pregnancy signs. I had a lot of the uterine stretching pains, the ligament pains, the quick stabbing, like gas pains that a lot of people report having in early stages of pregnancy. I was tired all the time. I was nauseous. You name it. I had a lot of them. But in Arizona, for those 10 days, I don't know if it was just the power of suggestion, but most of those symptoms were gone. So not only was I not getting any of the signs of miscarriage, I wasn't getting any of the signs of pregnancy either. So I think in the back of my mind I kind of knew what was going to happen here, but I might have been trying to hold on to false hope. I remember hoping that, maybe there's a viable gestational sac with a baby in it hiding behind the bad one. And I also knew I had a slightly tipped uterus, which a tipped uterus can cause them to have some problems with sight in ultrasound. A lot of times things won't show up as fast as they should, but from what I understand, your uterus has to be really tipped for that to be an issue, and mine was only slightly, so more than likely that wasn't causing the problem either. So I came back from Arizona, and they wanted me to go for a 4th ultrasound immediately. So I came back on a Sunday night, and I did the ultrasound on a Monday morning. And I was exactly 10 weeks on that Monday. And this time there was no denying what was going on. The gestational sac had not grown. It was 2 weeks behind now. Measurement-wise, it was 2 weeks behind. And it had kind of changed shape. It kind of looked like a flattened lima bean, maybe. Shape-wise, obviously it was bigger than that. And in the past, while there was no signs of a baby growing in there, it was also very clear. It was clean. And now there was debris in it. Visual debris on the ultrasound screen. And later the doctor told me that there were also lesions on the outside of the sac. So it was starting to break down. More than likely, it had stopped getting nutrition at some point. And it was just in there for too long, and I was at risk of becoming infected if they didn't do something soon. And I still had no signs of miscarriage. My body refused to let go. So that Friday, which was April 12th, I had to have a DNC suction. And I was almost 11 weeks at the time of that procedure. Now, typically a DNC can be done via scraping or suction, and the scrape and scoop method I know has risks. They're minimal, but they're out there. The risks can cause even further infertility issues, though they are rare. But by this point, I'd felt like I'd pulled enough short straws, and I was just really scared of the whole concept of DNC. And luckily, my doctor prefers to do the suction method for the exact reasons that I was scared of. So that much I was relieved to hear that it was being done via the suction method. But I won't lie, the whole thing was horrible. Emotionally, it was horrible. You go to the hospital, and the first they put you in one room, and then they put you in pre-op, and then you end up in op, and then you're in a different spot when you have to wake up, because they do have to put you under for this. And then after you wake up, you go back to the room you started in. So by the time you're done, you've had like 6 nurses, and every time you encounter a new one, the first thing that they say is, "I'm sorry for your loss." And I know they're just trying to do their job, and they're trying to be supportive and understanding of what you're going through, but God, by the end of the day, you just don't want to hear that sentence anymore, because it doesn't do you any good. Every time I'd hear those words, the waterworks would just start back up every time. I couldn't control it. I would just start sobbing. And, when it's all done and you leave the hospital, you leave with an empty mind and an empty womb. And it really sucks. And I've been put through a lot of interesting scenarios in my life, but I just couldn't figure out how to handle this one. I was not in a good place for about 4 days. After 8 years of hoping, my first positive turned out to be nothing but a cruel joke. That's really what it felt like, a cruel joke. And you know, the doctors, they try to keep you positive. I love my doctor, and I really trust him, and his PA is great, and I normally see the PA. She's a wonderful individual, and she talked to me for about an hour, just trying to keep me positive. They were happy my body did its job and held on to this pregnancy for all it was worth. They said that was a really good sign. They were happy that I got pregnant only on metformin. I wasn't even on Clomid yet. I mean, that was like a miracle. For us, that was like a miracle. We've got so many hurdles. And, you know, then they're actually happy about the DNC because, you know, they claim that studies show that women that have DNCs tend to get pregnant quickly afterwards. And well, the other thing they were telling me is, you know, blighted ovums are rare. It's not they're rare. I'm sorry. That having more than one blighted ovum is rare. It's really rare, supposedly. And that a blighted ovum can happen to anybody, that there's nothing we did wrong, that none of our factors, the PCOS, the abnormalities on his end, none of those things put you at a greater risk of having a blighted ovum. So they're telling me all of these things, and I should have been trying to hang on to all of these good things. But I couldn't. And I don't know why. I was listening to them, but they just weren't getting through to my brain. I was all about the doom and gloom. I couldn't get the doom out and the hope back in. And that's really what this is about. You gotta let the hope back in. And I was having a really hard time with that. It was like I had, you know, the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, and the devil was winning. The devil was like blocking any hope or light or anything that was good from getting into my heart. I was in a really dark place. And I think the reason behind that is you know, I think too much. I do. It's very hard for me to turn my brain off. There's just too many ifs left bouncing around in this brain of mine. And when something like this, you know, what if that was our 1 in a million? What if this was our one shot and went sour? We've got 3 different problems. Is this ever going to happen again? Am I ever going to get pregnant again? You know, what if I pull another short straw and end up with another blighted ovum? Will I be strong enough to potentially go through all of this again? You know, it just goes on and on and on and on, and I just couldn't stop. And I think that last one, you know, would I be strong enough to ever be able to go through this again? I think that last one is the biggest fear I don't know what to do with. I still don't know what to do with it now. I'm doing much better than those first 4 days, but this one fear, oh man, when, and I'm going to say when, not if, because it will happen, when I get pregnant again. You're supposed to be elated when you see that smiley face or that double line or the little pregnant symbol on the digital test. Man, I don't think I will be. I think I'll be scared to death for 6 to 10 weeks until they see a fetal pole, until they hear a heartbeat. I'll just be terrified until they see some kind of growth in the sac. And it's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be elated. And you know, that kind of stress isn't good for a pregnancy. I mean, it's not good for TTC. How will I turn it off? I don't know. I don't have that answer yet. So then, you know, after the fear came the anger. You know, the whole emotional levels you're supposed to go through, and I went through every single one. The anger, and some of it made no sense. It was just raging words, raging thoughts. You know, why am I broken? First I have PCOS, then my body can't figure out how to miscarry correctly, and I have a blighted ovum, and what else is going to be broken about me? What else was I thinking? This is going to be horrible, but this did run through my brain. Why did God even allow me to get pregnant if it wasn't going to be viable? What kind of cruel joke is this? And I know I thought this one numerous times. I thought that I'd rather never get a positive than to miscarry. So, yeah, anger. And like I said, some of it was just rage, you know. Crazy thoughts running through your brain before you can actually comprehend them. And honestly, I really don't know how I feel about that last statement. Which one is worse, never getting a positive or miscarrying? You know, it's been 8 years, so I kind of know both sides of that fence. And they both suck. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't wish either one on my worst enemy in the world. I wouldn't. Ugh. But, you know, it took numerous people and numerous doctors to finally get through to me. But one of them finally said, you've got to find a way to get positive again. The stress is not good for you. It's only going to mess up your cycles and cause you more problems. Now, why I needed someone to say that to me is something that I already knew. I don't know, but something clicked that helped. And that was Tuesday night. Last Tuesday night. So, I guess 4 days of borderline depression isn't that bad. It could have been a lot worse. So that's where I'm at. That's where we're at. We aren't allowed to TTC for 2 cycles. After a DNC, you can bleed like anywhere from a couple days to 3 weeks. And because they tell me, because I was on prometrium, progesterone supplements, that the body can get really confused when it doesn't have those supplements anymore. And they fully expect me to be at the tail end of that range. I'm kind of hoping it's not the full 3 weeks, but we'll see. It's been a week and a day, and it hasn't let up yet. Hopefully that's not too much TMI, but I'm just trying to explain what I'm going through. Once, let's see if I remember how I said this. Once that stops, I should get AF in 3 weeks from there. So that's sometime in May. And that first cycle is supposed to potentially do some more cleaning out. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if that means that it's going to be heavier than normal or what the deal is. The next cycle, so that would be June, is supposed to, sorry, my cat has decided to try and curl up next to me. Where was I? The next cycle, I believe, is in June. Hopefully, is supposed to kind of be a rebuild. And after that second AF, then we'll be allowed to try again. And you know, the doctors are convinced that this is going to happen quickly. They really think I'll get pregnant right away. And, oh, I hope they're right. As long as those first 2 cycles go normal, we're supposed to try just with metformin and prometrium for 3 months. The prometrium, or the progesterone supplements, whatever you want to call it, is supposed to be from cycle day 17 to 28, assuming that I ovulate on day 14. Otherwise, you have to adjust it from there. It's 72 hours after you ovulate. So, that would be July through September, those 3 months. So as long as the next 5 cycles are normal, if we still don't conceive, then they'll move us on to the next step. I don't know, maybe IUI. That would be my guess, since we have numerous issues. If the next 5 cycles aren't normal, then it's the medicine game to get me to start ovulating correctly. But hopefully it won't come to that. Hope. That's what this is all about. Hope. I have to let hope in because that's all we've got, right? Without hope, where am I? I'm picture myself trapped somewhere in this crazy mind of my own, in a dark corner, crying, rocking myself back and forth. That's the definition of depression to me. And while this whole story really stinks, I don't want to be in that state of mind. It's not good for anything. It's not good for me. It's not good for my health. It's not good for TTC. It's just not good. And we only get one life. And that's not how I want to spend it. No matter how much this stinks, I don't want to spend it in that dark, hopeless place. So we have to let hope in. And you know, of course, none of this conception plan is guaranteed. There's no way to know if another roadblock pops up in the path somewhere. We just have to believe that the doctors are right, that it'll work out the way they say it will. Or take another path and try again. Oh, but it's hard. I'm not going to lie, it's really hard. It hasn't been that long since the DNC, and I may need something to distract me for this 2 months of holding pattern that we're in. Though I think as the time, when the time starts getting closer, I think I'll probably start trying to figure out some of the things we can add to our cycles to increase our conception chances. Yeah, I don't know who I'm kidding. I'm already thinking about those things now. But that's all right. The doctors did say it's important to decompress and to de-stress, and make sure I'm doing something for me occasionally that's not necessarily for TTC. Shoe shopping. I did that the other day. That counts, right? So here's to hope and belief and faith and lots of baby dust. Till next time.